Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, awesome. So vision, this is something that Joel approached me. I was at, what's the burrito place called? Yeah, thank you. I was at Expoto and Joel's like, hey, I emailed you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, cool. And then I got the email, I was like, oh, that's what you wanted to talk to me about? Public speaking is not my thing. And so this year I committed to being in practice of things that are hard for me. So here I am. And I was promised a really kind crowd, so thank you so much for that. So vision, my whole idea of this talk was things that live inside of my head and are really hard for me to put into words. And so this has been a really fun exercise for me. What I'm going to talk about is vision in the context of both personal growth and how that correlates to business. And just honestly, not just business, but anything that you do in life. So vision for me is the opposite of reaction. In business, it's about imagination meeting pragmatism. And today I'm going to talk about vision in practice, intentional decisions on a daily basis, or as we like to call them, rooted reverberations. At Little Waves Roasters, our vision is flourishing for all in our industry through gender and racial equity. And it's really hard to encapsulate that and say that without that feeling phony. And so for me, my goal is to share how to do that in a rooted way. And it's not about perfection. So yeah, my goal is to share my journey as a woman of color and an immigrant. Self-work has been vital to my journey towards finding self-worth and putting myself out there, which leads to representation and informs how we hire, and also just the rooted reverberations. So I have 3 acts. On a healing journey, seeing yourself in the room, and then some extensions of these rooted reverberations. So this is me when I lived in Mexico. I was born in Tijuana, and this was pre-K. And I remember being in kindergarten. This was for Mother's Day, by the way, and I don't know why they let me lead, but I was so happy. In kindergarten, so the year after that, I remember this vision, this memory, it doesn't escape me because I'm wearing this shirt that says Crybaby. Because I've been a crybaby since I was a little kid, just very sensitive to the world. I was in kindergarten, we were in recess, and I was climbing up the stairs to go down the slide, and this kid decides to climb on top of me and over me to go down the slide first. So of course I was like, what's just happened to me? I don't understand. And I climbed back down and I was crying in the classroom, and I just remember thinking to myself, not exactly in these words because I don't think I was that sophisticated then, but why would another human disrespect another human? Why would a human disrespect another human? And to me that was always just if we all do our inner healing, the world would be a better place. And so that, to me, when I think about anybody's creative journey and just being on this planet, I think about going back to that essence. And that essence exists in you when you're at probably this age, or maybe younger, or whenever your first memory is before the world starts to traumatize you. And of course, that, we also come to this world with so much generational trauma and ancestral trauma. And so that has been my journey of how to focus on your inner healing and how to think about ancestral trauma and finding people within your family or maybe even close circles to compare notes and to help you on this journey. For me, that little brujita is my cousin Fernanda. She's 15 years younger than me, and this is a picture of her. I asked her if I could share this picture because I feel it really represents a little bit of what I'm talking about. So Fernanda is like early 20s, I think she's 24. And we were on our trip in Europe, and this is her at our house, like watching The Omnivore, and she was just so like beaming with joy, like, oh my God, my prima's on TV. But like for us, like we share a grandmother on my mom's side, and that energy, I've always felt my grandmother present with me, and we know that there's so much healing to do on that side. And so like for us, like it's just been like really beautiful to use coffee as like this really beautiful like grounding experience, and the work within coffee, I feel like, is a replication of the outside world. And I think that you can probably do that with so many industries. Part of all of this is also just like future tense, thinking about the willingness to listen and grow and release. And that to me is like a really great tool, not just as a leader in your business, but also as like a coworker or just a human on this planet. Being willing to grow and understand like, oh wow, like, okay, like to even think about reactions to a communication, like why did that land really, like, why is this triggering me? Sometimes it's not even about you. Sometimes it's an ancestral trauma that you unfortunately have to deal with and now heal so that we're not passing that on to the next generation. So how does that relate to what we do? All of that work, when we first started Cocoa Cinnamon, we started in my mom's kitchen in 2010. And like at that point, it was to me the idea of creating like a business that was about creating space for community was really exciting, but I didn't think about the idea of like having to put myself out there, right? I was like, yeah, I'll just be behind bar. I'll be behind like things. Like nobody needs to know anything about me. We're just gonna put those reverberations out and people will come if they wanna come. And so that was always my mentality. And then in 2013, I went to my first SCA Expo, which is the Specialty Coffee Association. It was in Boston, I believe. And I just remember, it was my first time at one of those events, and it was also just my first time experiencing the big, wider industry. And what I was like astonished by was just how like I was looking around the room and I was looking for other people that looked like me on the coffee shop owner side. Of course, I was gonna see people that kind of looked like me on the origin side, but I'm like, this is such a big industry, like why can't I find myself? I found one person in that at that time, and I just like kept gravitating towards her. And I think that really like was the catalyst to finally saying like, okay, fine, I'll do it begrudgingly. And that has been a lot of work, a lot of self-work to find my self-worth, to put myself out there and to really understand that like representation is so important and it's so vital, not just for yourself, but for everybody else who like wants to see themselves behind bar or who wants to see themselves in whatever profession, like to see the possibilities. And so this is a picture of the Omnivore on where I'm roasting, and then the churro effect that was in our state. And I just remember like family members from California like sharing the churro effect magazine picture, and I don't know, it just felt nice. Now like we have seen a huge effect of me putting myself out there in the sense of our team and like who's behind bar. We're a predominantly women-forward company, and a lot of us are bilingual or like immigrants or come from immigrant backgrounds. So all of that is to say that that helps inform how we hire and like how we put our applications out there. And all of this serves our vision. And in 2017, we started Little Waves Coffee Roasters, and at that time as well, like it was also like there were very few women in the like roasting side. let alone women of color. And so for me, sourcing coffee has become something that is a new part of my growth in the coffee industry as well. And it also lent this vision of thinking about coffee like a coffee farmer's market in a sense, creating these relationships across the globe with women of color. And again, looking in the room and trying to find where are we? The entire supply stream is so white, male dominated. And so to me, that's the importance, right? Whether it's me or whether it's Mandela in the back. Oh, hey, Leon. I wasn't sure if he was coming because he's I don't want to bring my nervous energy to you. So thanks for being here, Leon. Yes, so hiring and sourcing, and I feel for me, when I started thinking about sourcing, I was okay, where are all the women importers? Where are all the women producers that I want to help support? And to me, this is a real partnership. And I'm not trying to bring this energy of savior, right? Because we're both businesses, we both benefit each other. And that's the it's not just about business though, it really does. When I first met, this is a picture of my first trip to Brazil. This trip happened about a year ago, I think at this point. What is time? I'm not really sure. But Phyllis Johnson was somebody that I reached out to in 2020 when I was getting better into my groove of really honing in how I wanted to enact this vision. And Phyllis Johnson is maybe one of 2 Black women importers in the industry. And she, again, when you see representation, that ripples to seeing themselves in the wider industry. And so this is work that she's doing in Brazil with the Black Brazilian Producers Program. And we had been buying coffee from a lot of the people that are in this picture. And for me, I didn't want to go to origin before I had a track record with these producers. And so when I met them, I actually started crying because I was oh my God, in real life, I don't know, again, I'm a crybaby, so. The energy and the emotions of the impact that I felt of just seeing them. And right after this trip, I actually met up with Leon in Colombia, and he was how is Brazil? I was just oh my God, I can't even talk about it. I was I felt I was at home. I was I felt I wanted them to adopt me. I didn't want to come, I didn't even want to leave, so. And I think that was a part of, Leon asked me why was that? I was I don't know, I was my shoulders just dropped, when we were together, and it felt like family, and and that's not to say I don't know, it's just, it's important to keep the relationships of, business, and then not, the family thing can get tricky, but for me, it really just did feel there was this warmth and there was this connection. And I think just the rooted reverberations, and I think that's the important part. I think when I talk about the essence, and I think I talk about the self-work, those are things that we never talk about in business. And that is honestly the work that needs to be done on, it's the undercurrent to enact your vision. And when you think about diversity and inclusion, that's only a fluffy word unless you're doing the work yourself. And thank you. So these are just some extensions of the rooted reverberations. We've supported women of color to compete in the U.S. coffee competitions, and we'll continue to do that as we can. Sourcing coffees from Black, Brown, Indigenous women at prices above fair trade. Quality coffee, quality roasting. Our goal in getting recognition isn't about clout for ourselves, but it's about doing that work and lending the platform to be able to then uplift these voices and the people that we're working with. Like Joel said, we won Roaster of the Year in 2022, which was during the pandemic. That was really wild and crazy. And that's through Roast Magazine, where like roasters from all over the globe will apply for this. And it was Micro Roaster of the Year. For me, I feel like the more clout you get, the more attention for producers to allow to support the people that you want to support. And I think it's important for me to continue to challenge my perspectives of that, and who we're bringing to the table in terms of what coffees are considered valuable and what coffees are considered showstoppers. A lot of that is sometimes down to the tasting profiles and all of that, but how do we find the women in the room that are doing this work? And that's my goal. The Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity was also founded by Phyllis Johnson, and that's something that I'm a part of, and that's something that the mission is to support Black entrepreneurs and Black coffee professionals within the United States at the moment, but that's to bring more equity into our coffee industry. And then my sisters opened up a coffee shop in Cherokee. This is huge for me because my dad is an entrepreneur, and that's how we learned that immigrant hustle. And he's one of 10, and he helped all of his siblings open up craft shops. And so I feel like I'm in his footsteps a little bit. This feels very serendipitous. So it also just feels really nice for my sisters to trust their youngest sister, you know? And then again, we were featured in Omnivore on Apple TV, which is also really huge because they did interviews with a bunch of different roasters, and I would like to believe that they went with us because of our values and our mission, and just the rare makeup that we are predominantly a women, mostly women of color roastery. So 7 Women is just something that we've been trying to turn into a story, but it's just a representation of one coffee. And it's about Sitio Pico del Bonet, which was part of this picture. Christiane is in the middle right here. I don't know if y'all can see, but she's the one squatting down in the middle. And her family, we were visiting her farm. That was my first time meeting her. But I resonated with her, and I connected with her a lot because she had a lot of that self-doubt. And when we went on this trip, she kind of told Phyllis oh, maybe we should visit a different farm because I don't think our farm is in her mind, her farm wasn't worthy enough for us to visit. But I don't know what she was talking about. It was paradise. But Christiane and her siblings are, they've been producing coffee for a while, but her dad is the one who bought the land. And so the history of Brazil with coffee, the reason why they are the dominant coffee producers is because of slavery. And so thinking about supporting black Brazilian producers who are owning their land because it went from sharecropping to land owning is such an important thing. And that was Phyllis Johnson's question, where are the Black Brazilian producers? And so for Christiane to she graduated with a degree in agronomy and has been using all of that knowledge to improve quality on her farm. But not just that, she also helps support other producers around her community to help their quality go up. And so for me, that's in the extension of those rooted reverberations. You look out in the room and you are looking for these people. Phyllis Johnson, like I said, she's, so this is the supply stream right here. We have Christiane, who's producing the coffee with her family, which is predominantly women as well, and her two brothers. And then Phyllis Johnson, like I said, one of 2 Black women importers in the US and started the CCRE program. And then me, who buys the coffee and helps with quality control. And then we have Mari Carmen Paz Hernandez, who started working with us when she was 17. She's now 25, married, and has a baby on the way, and is our head roaster and director of roasting and quality control. She's first generation Mexican. And Mandela, who's in the back, big shout out. She's been brewing some amazing coffees back there, but she's our director of wholesale and education, and helps us get our name out to different parts of the world. And Manon, who we didn't actually meet, but she's she's the director of coffee at Days in Paris. So like I said, the picture of my cousin watching me on Omnivore was when we were over there for the Olympics, and we left some samples with Manon, and Manon also competed in competitions. And so the reason why I put Manon on here is because for me, like when we think about coffees like Sitio Pico do Bonet, this coffee was something that like she took a risk, Christiane took a risk by doing some experimenting on like fermentation, which made the coffee a lot more fruity. When we think about Brazil coffees, we think very chocolatey, very nutty, which is a palate pleaser, but it's also like not something that you would consider like showstopper. And so for me, like this was an exciting moment to create a showstopper experience with a coffee from Brazil, from a woman, and a Black woman at that. So this is just a little bit of our rooted reverberations. In conclusion, for me, rooted reverberations is not about perfection, but about being in practice, and that vision in practice, and doing the work and showing up. It affects how you lead, so do the inner work. Values-driven businesses, it's all connected. Be rooted, don't just give lip service. Actions speak louder than words. And quality is so important. Even if you're a values-driven business, the quality has to be there, because without that, the values are just a pretty bow on a product. And then keep showing up. Be consistent with your standards, with your words, and with representing the future you want to see. That's it. How did I do on time?
Keep giving it up for Areli. Thank you so much for doing that.
I didn't even cry.
There's still time.
There's still time, you're right.
Q&A can get a little teary.
Don't make me cry, y'all.
So I need to go catch a flight. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna pass it over to one of our dear volunteers for some Q&A. Nicole's in the back. Durham, resident Durham, one of our Durham team. Areli, it was a dream. Like I literally asked Areli like 9 months ago if she would talk for this event. It's a dream to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the Q&A portion. Love seeing you. See you next month.
Safe flight. Thank you. Do you need your computer?
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Areli. I'm like vibrating with both caffeine from the amazing.
That was the goal. Bring sugar and caffeine to make everyone at my level of energy. Thank you.
From a fellow crybaby, I also have a question. Where did you get that t-shirt? Find me afterwards.
Yes,
I need it.
Etsy, baby.
Yes. Okay, we have time for about 10 minutes of Q&A, and I see a hand, so I'm going to walk over there. For the rest of you, start thinking about your questions.
Sorry, I'm like buzzing with energy because I'm such a big fan of you. I think I used to live right next to the Lakewood location, and
Yeah.
I didn't drive, but I would constantly make a trip to go down there for the churros and the coffee. And every time my friends move to Durham, it's like, go to Coco Cinnamon. I swear you won't regret it. As a fellow crybaby, I'm just
Don't make me cry.
we're both gonna be there. But like on the topic of reverberations, like how you saw and got inspiration Phyllis, I'm curious of what the stories you've heard from people that you've inspired, whether it's your staff or fellow Latino roasters in the community.
Ooh, yeah, I think for me, like it's really, Expo of last year, I don't know, it was this year. Oh my God, time. In Chicago, we went to Expo again, and we had a booth, and we had somebody come to me who I hadn't seen since like 2017 maybe, and she works with Cafés Sustentables in Mexico. And this coffee is like kind of what really opened my eyes on like sourcing. And so this coffee is from Nayarit in Mexico, which is where my dad is from. And that was really exciting for me. Like I didn't even know that coffee was produced in that part of Mexico. And so like seeing her, like she shared this story with me about a woman producer who had been doing that work for a really long time. And my first purchase of their coffee was through a Grounds for Health auction, and it was like a women-produced lot, and I didn't even know that was going to be an option too. So like that was also like really like everything was just aligning, and so we've been buying their coffee since like 2019, and like this was my first time seeing Marcela since I guess 2016 or 2017. I saw her in Seattle, and I had just like connected with her, and I told her like we plan on buying this coffee, and she's like, and sure enough, like the next year you bought the coffee, and she was like, I just like really appreciate that you kept your word. She's like, but I want to share a story with you about this producer who was just feeling really like low in her life and like really depressed. Like she couldn't get out of bed because she just felt really devalued in like the work that she was doing as a woman, as a producer in Mexico. And so she like told her like the story of Little Waves, and like told her like there's actually like this Mexican woman in like the United States who like runs this roastery, and like she specifically like trying to find the coffee of women-produced coffees from here. And she was like, you're just saying that to make me feel better. And she was like, here's a picture of her, and she's like, that's just your friend. Like she was just so deep in the depression that she wasn't believing her, but she was like, I don't know, just like sharing the impact that like our purchases have. And like that really like, we were crying on the floor, because I was just like, that's just really like important for us to hear as well.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for digging deep into your courage and sharing your story. I hope you leave here feeling very, very proud of yourself. I was curious, what is your absolute wildest dream of your business? When you feel like, I did it, I made it.
I just want to keep seeing more like brown, indigenous, Black women in the industry, and like just keep seeing them in leadership positions. And like honestly, like I think that's a selfish goal, but also I think that's like that makes our industry stronger, and I'm going to continue to do that work. And I know that it's not all on my shoulders, but like I'm in this really privileged position to make decisions of change, like to have these like purchasing decisions and who we partner with, and that feels really cool. And I think that also like affects our team, and like like what I'm doing on that side also affects our team, like in that makeup as well. And like we have Mariah, who's our director of retail, who's like a mixed Black woman who like is doing an amazing job of like hiring. And so again, like putting people in leadership positions to see those ripples. So that's not really a wild dream, but that is the ultimate goal. Yeah. Question back there. Oh. Hi.
I also want to thank you for being here, sharing your story, using yourself as an example of what it takes to run such an intentional business. Something that you said that really stuck with me, or the story that you shared that really stuck with me, is how intentional you have been around like cultivating this Black and brown women-owned business, from producers all the way to retailers. I work with a lot of people who struggle with the myth of how hard it is to find really good Black and brown talent.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk more about like the culture that you created within your business that enables this talent to thrive, that attracts them to you, and then also allows them to be seen and to grow?
Thank you for that question. And I think that the initial answer is that that person also needs to do their work. Yes, there's so much talent out there. And the cool thing about coffee is that we hire for like character, and the coffee part you can teach. And so I think when you are putting your like reverberations out there, like you're attracting the people that reverberate with that as well, and whose vision is aligned with yours. And yeah, it's not easy. You know, we're all human. We're all here with our own flaws and like our own healing work to do. But I think it's always just like, Leanne and I do annual assessments of like how do we like make our business better each year. And we try to do that within a context of like, you know, again, like imagination meeting pragmatism. And so like there are like obviously things that need to get done, and like I think sometimes it's also like the cool thing about being an entrepreneur is that like you can make it all up. And and so like reimagining without necessarily making your life harder, I think reimagining like what is working, what isn't working, and like how do we make it as inclusive as possible. I think it's constant work. I think that's the thing. It's like there's no right answer. There's no like, it's just trial and error. And yeah, you're gonna fuck up, and you're gonna like learn from those mistakes ideally. But I think for me, it's just like, yeah, continuing to assess. I think that's the real work. In the white jacket back there.
So one thing you shared with us, which is that vision is the opposite of reaction, is really sticking with me. And you just talked a little bit about it with annual assessments, but I'm curious about those interruptions and those practices that really help you get off that reactive train and back onto intentionality. How do you do that? And can you speak as well to the rate at which your business has scaled, and whether that, you know, has anything to do with moving away from reaction and towards intentionality, even when you need to make a profit? I'm sure there's some deadlines you're trying to hit.
Yeah.
What are those interruptions and those practices?
I mean, the pandemic, holy moly. And also, like, when we first started our business, we had $75 to our name and, like, no access to credit. So I think, I don't know, I think that being a values-driven business is what, like, helps us kind of stay afloat in a sense. And it's not why we do it, it's just who we are. But I think that Leanne and I like created our business plan back in 2010, and like we also kind of drew up an idea of what our business would look like, and like literally drew like little pictures. And like I just remember when we opened our first shop in 2013, like we looked back at those pictures and we were like, whoa, we did everything that we said we were gonna do. And I think some of that was just like this like wild-eyed like determination of like making it happen. But I think when it comes to interruptions, like I feel like the pandemic like reminded us of like our beginnings, because we did a lot of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding essentially to help us get our shop open. And like some of that wasn't even like financial. A lot of that was like literally people were walking in and like helping us paint the walls. But like that energy, and like honestly, like shout out to Durham, because Durham, without Durham, I don't think like Cocoa Cinnamon would exist. It's true. Like this community, I was like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Like, why are people so nice here? Like, but yeah, I think that like Durham is such a special place, and I think that in terms of interruptions, like community is really like the key of like making it happen. But I think because our goal has always been the same, our vision has always been the same, like even if there's interruptions, it's like just pivoting your approach to it to still achieve that vision, if that makes sense. And then in terms of scaling, like we opened our first location in 2013 and our second in 2016, and then our third in 2017. And those two kind of happened back to back because we found the buildings at the same time, and our goal was to roast eventually. And so the third building kind of had more room to allow for that. And we also took those steps because we have different landlords at each location, and we just didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. And now we have, we bought a building for the first time to move our roastery into.